Everybody, this is Nick Morrell with Audio Video Export. It's a pleasure, as always, to be able to bring to you the next in our series of webinars. Today we've got the awesome group from Furman, as well, it's the Nortek Security and Control Group. Amongst those brands that we carry is going to be Panamax, which we're not really going to focus on today, but we can talk about it if some questions lead us that direction. We're really focusing today on the Furman line of protection, as well as the awesome competitive advantage that we have with Gefen. So on the line, we've got Rafael Garcia, who brings to us the presentation from Furman, but we've also got Jason Fitzgerald, who's probably gonna be talking with us about the Gefen line of products. These are our resident product experts, but we've also have Eldon Henry, who is the territory manager for all of Latin America for all of Nortek, and he's a good close friend of ours. And then an extra special privilege, and I didn't get to mention it yesterday in the Spanish because he joined a few minutes late, but we've got one of my most excellent friends in all of the entire world, even though we don't talk nearly as much as I'd like us to, is Horacio Morales. He used to work for a rep company, and then it was Core Brands who ended up snatching him up, and now he's I don't even know what he does. He's so high and lofty there. Doesn't want to talk to us anymore, but he's great people. Awesome to have him. And you're unmuting your microphone to defend yourself, and I'll let you do
that. Thanks, Nick. That's a very kind and generous introduction. But thank you so much for being on this call with us. We're really excited to have Rafael and Jason, and really just this opportunity to talk to you about some of the cool stuff that we get to do every day. So thank you, Nick, for this opportunity.
Nah, you guys are the best, and it's great to have you. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to have some lunch or dinner over at Infocom. Hopefully, CEDIA, we'll see each other again. So without any further ado, Rafael, Jason, the whole team, thank you guys so much. Rafael, all to you.
All right. Thank you, Nick, for having me here and us here. And thank you for everybody that's joined. So I'm Rafael Garcia Beck. I'm one of the sales trainers for Nortek Security and Control. So today we're going to go over an overview of Furman. Not too much of a deep dive into the product line, but if you guys have any questions on the product line, we can definitely discuss it with no problems. So first, a little backstory on Furman. Furman was founded in 1975 by Jim Furman. Jim Furman was an audio engineer and a sound technician. He was well known for being the sound technician and audio engineer for the Grateful Dead during their live shows. So anything between the late 60s, early 70s that was live that the Grateful Dead did, Jim Furman was the engineer for that. So our first products when Jim Furman founded the company was signal processors. PQ3 and PQ6 were parametric equalizers. You see them there in the picture on the left-hand side with Bob and Jerry holding them. So they were for pro musicians. So first clients, of course, Grateful Dead. He worked on the Steve Miller Band when he was working at Alembic, which was a little studio in San Francisco, and he did some work out of there in the studio also. It wasn't until about 1985 when Jim Furman started thinking about, hey, let's make a rack mount power conditioner where everything can be plugged into, because these guys are traveling all over the world and plugging into different voltages, and they don't even know what they're going to be plugging into. So let's save their equipment, and he came out with the first rack mount power conditioner, which is the PL8. And we still make a version of that. It's called the PL8C. We're the #1 power management brand in pro audio video to this day. To give you an idea, it's about 90% of the market share there. And when we talk about pro audio and video, we're talking about recording studios to broadcast studios, churches, you know, if it's in a van that's a broadcast, we have Furman products in all these locations. And then we introduced our residential line in 2001. So we started seeing home theater becoming a bigger thing inside the house. So we started saying, hey, let's bring the road home. So let's bring our technologies that we put out on the road with everybody, and let's bring that stuff home for the clients. So what are the benefits of power management? So first we start off with performance. So if you're selling to your customers a 4K TV, 8K TV, Dolby Atmos, high-res audio, 2-channel system, you want to get the best performance. That's what they're looking for, is they're looking for that experience. Well, the thing is if you don't have good power management, then you're not going to get that performance. Those harmonics and fundamentals aren't going to be filtered out like they should be. that's going to be the dirty power noise that's actually coming in and affecting that performance. So you want to make sure you start off with performance when you talk to your clients. Second is protection. A lot of this is an investment to customers, is you want to protect this equipment from power problems and just issues from happening. So that's it's them having peace of mind that they know that they're got good power management and a good company standing behind them with Furman or Panamax. Third is reliability. Now, again, that goes into the protection aspect of you want to make sure that everything's protected and it's reliable, but also that you don't have to roll any trucks for a service call. This goes into our Blue Bolt IP power management, so you can control your outlets and reset outlets remotely. So you don't have to send a truck or anything like that, and maybe it's a location that's hard to get to. We'll put in some Blue Bolt products so then that way you can remotely reboot the system and make it a lot easier on yourself and your clients. You can charge a monetary fee for it. We don't charge anything. It's built in the price of the product. You would just then show the value to the client when you get the emails, hey, something went down, and they don't even know it. And that's a nice little soft touch to the customer too. So let's get into why Furman is one of the #1 power brands out there. It goes into our technologies, really. So let's start off with our SMP technology, or series multi-stage protection. So this is non-sacrificial protection, or as we call it, the show must go on. So if a big surge comes in, like a lightning strike or something like that in the area, that normally kills your equipment, this will actually take in and absorb the energy and turn back on when power is normalized, or if you flip the breaker, will come back on. So in 14 years, about 1.1 million products have been shipped. We have not had a surge-related failure yet. So 14 years of making our board, not one has come back for a surge-related failure. Now, not saying that these things are going to last forever, because something else could happen, in production. Cold solder joint could have happened in the unit, and there you go. But for a surge-related incident, we have yet to have one come back. So that's that reliability that you take back to your customers of, why am I paying more money for a Furman device? This is why. And then you get 100% protection to your equipment with no downtime or replacements, like I said. Next is extreme voltage shutdown, or EVS for short. So this is for your sustained under and over voltages, your brown outages, and where there's spikes in that voltage. It's more of not just a little spike, but a continuous spike, could be lasting, a second or two or three or more. So the way that units work that have EVS in them, they turn off power to the equipment and will not turn back on to voltages in that safe range. Voltage for 120 volts is anywhere from 85 to 140 volts. We do make 240 volt products, so it would still be, we have that technology in that safe range for a 240 or 220, 240 volt product. But so the unit
we don't
will
have any
not.
guys on the line, Rafael, who are in one of the 2 countries in the Caribbean that are affected.
Okay.
Most of the Caribbean that, with rare exception, most of the Caribbean is going to be the same voltage as us. I know that Jamaica is one exception. They have the same voltage, but they're running on a different frequency. They're not at 60 hertz, they're 50. And then the same thing is true of Barbados. And then there are some odd countries that are in the southern part of the Caribbean that, that depending on whether they're the English side or the French side or the Dutch side, they may go into 220 volt. But are all of the Furman products, just as a generality, are they 50/60, or are they dedicated to 60 hertz? Which ones can we use? Because I know one of our guys, has a brother whose company is in Jamaica. And so sometimes he buys for his brother. And so, where does that come in?
No, you can use them anywhere. It's when it's 120, it's still in that 50-60 hertz range. So if it's 110, 50 hertz, you're still okay. Where we would come into play is depending on the voltage, how it is, if it's stable or not. Where if you want good voltage regulation at that point, that's where it comes in.
Right. So under normal circumstances, assuming that Jamaica 50 hertz, and the voltage has actually gone down a little bit below 110, so you'll sometimes see it, at least on the meter. And this has happened in the past. I had to open up a case about it because we just weren't sure, because it was registering at 50, that even though 50 hertz, even though it was 110 volts coming in, the actual meter that was on the front was showing a little bit lower, and so we needed to get a bigger model Furman in order for it to be able to work. I don't know if that made any sense. Can you make that intelligible?
Yeah. So basically, it's you probably on that one probably got a voltage regulator. So basically it took the incoming voltage of whatever it was at and boosted it back up to where it should be normalized.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So next would be our linear filtration, or as we call for short, LIFT technology. So this is, as you hear, dirty power or AC line noise. So noise is being caused by TVs, anything with a power supply computer, the power grid, your neighbor, power company, whatever. It's all causing noise. Well, that noise is coming back into your TV and into your speakers that is actually taking away picture quality and audio quality. So when you have linear filtration, you actually filter out that noise versus some of our competition that'll just do a filter, but it's actually got a lot of peaks and valleys in it. Ours is linear, goes straight down, follows the line noise all the way through the vocal range from what we can hear, and then into what we can see into radio frequency and video range there. So it filters out all that noise so that way you get the best picture and audio through your system.
And that's going to include filtering out noise from other appliances that may be running in the household, yes. Microwave, refrigerator, air conditioning, all of that other kind of stuff too?
Yep. Everything causes noise on the grid. It could be in your house, it could be your neighbor, it could be somebody a mile down the road that's on the same grid. All their stuff is causing noise back into your system. So this filters all that out.
Perfect.
So, yep. So next would be power factor. So this is for your amps and subs. Power factor is basically a capacitor that's inside the unit that actually stores energy and will drive the system fully when it needs to. A lot of amp sub manufacturers, high-end ones, will tell you just plug directly into the wall. The problem with plugging directly into the wall is you don't get filtered and you don't get any protection. What they're talking about is current compression. So that way that what happens when current compression is that your subwoofer will usually sound a little louder than your mids and highs is because your sub is actually sucking in all the energy to push the sub, and the amplifier is suffering to push the mids and highs. So this actually has a reserve inside of it, and it will actually, when it needs to push the system, it is available there. Now, by having a pure power source that's stored inside of the unit, you're actually lowering the noise floor again. So anywhere from 10 dB up to 40 dB a lot of times is what we see in noise floor reduction with having power factor. So it starts off at usually our Elite 15 PFI that has power factor in there and goes up from there. But this is for your amps and subs to be put into. So you have linear filtration, which will filter out noise. For everything else, power factor will actually filter out noise on top of the linear filtration in your amps and subs. So it makes it more punchy on the lows and then brilliant on the highs. And then last is discrete symmetrically balanced power. So this eliminates noise by regenerating the power signal. So basically, as the power comes into a home, it gets sucked down. It gets drawn down and you don't get as good of a signal. So what this does is it takes the incoming signal, regenerates it so the system can operate optimally. By doing this, if you ever have heard of ground loops or AC hums in your system, this will actually get rid of it. So a lot of times what people do on a ground loop is they just break off the ground loop, the ground on the unit, or they use a lifter or a cheater plug as we call it. The problem that you run into that is then you're not sometimes fully protected depending on what power condition you're running into because of needing that ground to go back into the system. So this is a way to remove, like I said, ground loops and AC hums. You get balanced power in one of our highest end models. That's usually our T reference series for home theater or in our Prestige series and Pro Audio, depending on which application you're actually going to need it for. So now, why buy Furman? So we talked about the technologies and everything, but what makes us different, like I said, is that we have Michigan critical surge suppression with our SMP and EVS. The show must go on. So 14 years of making SMP, not one has gone down for a catastrophic surge failure. That's why you buy our units. It's tried, true, tested, proven out of the market. This is on tour with Kiss, Elton John, Peter Frampton, Five Finger Death Punch, Zach Brown Band, you name it. There's been a person that is touring with our stuff. Also, this is what's in most major recording studios in the world too. Next is we have the best filters in the industry. Not just our lift technology, but adding our power factor and balanced power. When you add all three of those together, you'll get almost no noise floor, so you get the blackest blacks, the whitest whites, and the pure sound coming through your system. And that's ultimately what you want for your clients. Your clients are wanting this big experience of technology. Well, clean up that power to make sure they get that experience properly. Next is we have the largest breadth of technologies in power management for whatever your install requires. Like we talked about, 120, 220, 240. We have sacrificial pieces in our Merit series and some of our floor models. We have non-sacrificial pieces. Anything with SMP is non-sacrificial. We have sequencers, voltage regulators, blue bolt capability, power distribution units. Those are just extension cables, battery backups. We make it all. Not even just of what Furman makes, but you can even go into our Panamax brain, and you can actually daisy chain them together. So if you do a Panamax and plug it into a Furman that has SMP, now you put non-sacrificial protection in front, and let's say a Panamax blue bolt piece in the back end connected to the Furman. There you go. You get the best of every single world there.
Holy crap, I never thought about that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So if you do, let's say you're buying 43 and 4315 Pros. Why don't you do an Elite 15i? As long as you don't go over 15 amps, you can plug in the 4315 Pro into the Elite 15i. Now you have non-sacrificial surge protection on the front end, and you have blue bolt on the back end, which is nice. So it gives you that you can do a bunch of different things depending on the install. Just don't go over whatever it is, 15 amps or 20 amps, depending on the units. And then last is what the pros use. Like I said, this is in every major recording studio in the world. This is on tour with almost every major band or touring artist in the world, broadcast studios, venues, churches, houses of worships. This is what everybody uses. And the reason why they use us is so that way they have that reliability of something not going bad with our unit. Last would be resources and support. You have our tech support number there. You can get a hold of them. You have our website. It's a plethora of knowledge. It's everything that I just went over. Plus, it gives you all the lines of everything. We have frequently asked questions, catalogs. Reach out to Nick and the team for any questions, and they can always reach out to us if you have anything further into detail. But is there any major questions out there that I can answer for anybody right now?
No, and that's actually a good point. There is a question box, so if you do have a question, feel free. We've got a relatively small group today, so what we might do is if you have a bunch of questions towards the end, once we finish with the Gefen, we may stop the recording and just unmute the mics and let you guys talk so you don't have to type it. But okay, so there's a great question that just came in. Thanks, Mario. With regard to the UPSs, obviously it's not something that we touched on now. If you want to share your screen with going to the web browser in order to be able to pull up what that is. If not, I can do it afterwards, whatever you choose.
I can do it right now.
Perfect.
I anticipated this, so I brought up the website. So when you go to our website, you go up to the right-hand side here. This will give you all the product lines right here. So since we're sticking into the 120 volt, you just go into battery backups 120. You have the F1500 UPS and the F1000 UPS. So biggest difference between the two is 1500, that's the battery size, and 1000 is battery size. If you look at the 1500 real quick, the back of it, so you have 8 outlets here. You have a non-critical side and critical side. This is especially where you can set this up, like let's say a projector. The fan is on, but the bulb isn't cooled down yet. So you say, but the battery's starting to die. Set it up in the front panel or with USB to the software to set it up with the computer. You can kill the non-critical side at, let's say, 60% of the battery life. So then all the power goes over to the critical side. So then that fan can last longer to cool down the bulb. If you still need more than 1500 VA, you can add an external battery connection right here. I'll show you that in a second. That'll quadruple the runtime of battery backup capabilities there. But the big thing about this difference between the 1000 is this card right here. So it gets shipped with an RS-232 card, so it'll work with your control systems. Elan, Crestron Control 4, URC, things like that, RTI. But you remove this card and you put in a Blue Bolt CV2 card, and then now you have this as Blue Bolt capable, and you have bank controlled outlets here. So you can actually do scheduled commands for this stuff. So let's say where we do schedule commands, especially is our internet devices, modems, routers, usually any internet device you want to reset once a month or so. So that way it clears the cache. We'll set it up to the banks here, and you can actually then do it remotely where you do a schedule command that reboots, 2 a.m. on the third Thursday of every month. So that way it shuts down and will power back on, and you set it up how it powers back on in sequence too. But if you look at the 1000 VA, same unit, 1000 VA, you still have non-critical and critical, but it's just standard. It's RS-232 just built into the unit. The card is not removable for Blue Bolt. So this one is just RS-232. If you want Blue Bolt, you got to go into that 1500.
I think one of the biggest advantages that we've got with Blue Bolt is that it works with another integration system that we work with very intimately, and that's going to be on the Luxel on the networking side as it relates to donuts. So where we've got some of our competitors that they do a good job of integrating their products one with another through their own software, they don't necessarily play well with other brands.
Yeah.
Donuts has shown itself to be the absolute leader. So if you've got a home theater system with a Denon Marantz or a Pioneer, you've got some Blue Bolt products that are in there, and then you've got a Luxel networking. You can do all of that management, 100% of that management via Donuts, whereas the competitor, that they may give you a couple of those items, but not everything. So it's really great that Blue Bolt is friendly in that way, that we can do the same things that you're talking about via RS-232 all through a nice web interface, or you can do it via RS-232 in order to be able to have that through an automation system like URC. So that's really neat.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not right now, but if anybody does, please feel free to go ahead and type it in. Jason, we're going to you now.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. All right.
Awesome.
So, Gefen itself is actually part of the Nortek Security and Control company. So Nortek itself is actually a fairly large organization, a multi-billion-dollar organization with different divisions. So of course, air solutions, global HVAC, air quality, and home solutions, and of course, security and control, which Gefen is then combined with 16 other well-known and successful brands, which not only cover security and control, but we also cover other categories such as health and wellness, access control, power management, which we talked about, and many, many more. Next slide, please. All right, so what is Gefen? Gefen has always stood for quality, reliability, and innovation. And so I'm just going to read verbatim here what's on the slide here, because this kind of serves as our mission statement, right? Gefen, we've always taken pride in our ability to produce quality, commercial grade products that are designed to work 24/7 in the most challenging environments. We build pro products that pave the way in an ever-changing industry, whether this is with bleeding edge technology or with technology that makes viable sense in the marketplace. And I like to kind of hone in on this word viable because, as you know, there's a number of different technologies out there, and Gefen doesn't saturate all of these. So we are very product focused in creating products that service our customers. And a great example of this, for example, you may have heard of SDVoE. And SDVoE is, of course, a 10 gigabit video over IP technology. But Gefen's line is supporting a 1 gigabit solution because this is where the meat of our customers lie, right? Most installations, in fact, I've got some great statistics that cover this, where we're looking, for example, in campus installs, 75% of campus installs still support a 1 gigabit endpoint. And that's important to note. So while they've got 10 gigabit or even larger backpoints, 1 gigabit is still the de facto standard what most of our customers support. So we develop products that really affect our customer base. Next slide, please. All right, so just a little background and history. So Gefen was started in 1998 by a gentleman by the name of Haggai Gefen. And in 2006, this is sold to the larger Nortek organization, where I joined roughly in about 2007 timeframe. So this was merged in with core brands and in 2015. And then following that in 2017, core brands were then, of course, rolled into Nortek Security and Control as it is today. And I'm glad to say that we finally found a home with Nortek. And there's a lot of great benefits, which I've listed here, not only for Nortek, but for Gefen and Gefen clients. So the biggest benefit for Nortek, of course, the Gefen fills a much needed category for AV signal management. And because of our large clientele in the commercial and pro spaces, for example, this brought these products into their portfolio. For Gefen and our clients, and some of the biggest and the most exciting things for me is the fact that Nortek is a fairly large organization, which brings a lot of stability for us and resources in terms of product development. And on the right-hand side, you can see we're fully integrated with the different organizations that Gefen used to have, so sales and marketing, customer service, research and development, operations and finance. So these are all fully integrated into Nortek it is today, which really helps us kind of push the categories for Gefen further. Here's a more focused view of the control group within Nortek, which Gefen is a part of. And you'll see a number of brands here that hopefully you're familiar with. Of course, we've got Eldon, which is making some impact in the control side for residential and commercial control. We've got Zantac, who is the premier name in IR management. And of course, Furman and Panamax, which we just talked about. Speakercraft, Niles, and Proficient, all excellent speaker brands. Sunfire for subwoofers. And of course, now we've got Gefen, who is the AV signal management company or brand within that organization. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Gefen, right? So Gefen means business, and this really is kind of a dual term when I say mean business, right? So of course, we do a lot of B2B business. Gefen brings that, of course, to Nortek. But not only that, we are very focused on product development. So we're serious. In other words, we mean business about product development. And here for some of the reasons, of course, of why and how we're able to do that is first in technology, right? We try to remain on the forefront of technology. We work with a number of different technology manufacturers. So some, of course, HDMI being one of them, but HD-Base-T, also a very large one that we've got a very close relationship with. And as we are, as we've produced product over the years, we've made a number of relationships with IC manufacturers. So we are very familiar with the likes of Silicon Image, for example. In fact, our CTO, who was with us when we merged in with Core Brands, hailed from or came from Silicon Image, who is the proprietor of an IC that manages the signals within televisions, within AVRs, and those kinds of products. But other types of technologies like A-Speed or Explorer or Morningstar, we are very close relationships to always be the first ones to take crack at, of course, new ICs that come onto the market. In terms of solutions, Gefen is a solution provider, right? We produce boxes, of course, or products that facilitate a certain solution. And we've got a full catalog of products that help support that. And the greatest example for solutions that I can give you is specifically in video over IP, right? Video over IP has versatility, it's got scalability, and the Gefen solution for video over IP takes this a step further. I mean, we've got individual products for DVI, DisplayPort, HDMI, VGA, that will be able to address every endpoint, right? Every source and every display that you have in an installation. So you don't have to do any kind of conversion because we have the individual products that will give you an entire solution. And they're all cross-format compatible, right? So that's the best example I can give you in terms of a solution that we provide that basically lets you complete an install from start to finish without the displays and the sources, right? Those are always user provided. In terms of versatility, right? Gefen has a long history of providing problem-solving devices that help complete installations and overcome challenges. If you need composite to HDMI conversion or vice versa, we've got that. In the broadcast industry in the early 2000s, where HDMI and DVI was first starting to make waves, we brought those consumer devices for HDMI and DVI into broadcast workflow with Genom VXP powered conversion devices that are still in use today at NBC, CBS. A lot of the companies here located in Los Angeles, which is where Gefen originally hailed from, was in the Southern California area. But also things like audio breakout boxes. I can't tell you how many times that you need to, for example, convert digital to analog audio in an installation for television, for example, that's pulling digital audio that you need to break it out to go to some kind of AV distribution or AVR. But we've sold tens of thousands of these small converter boxes. So we're certainly known and have versatility to do these kind of conversions for you. In terms of expertise, we've got over 20 years of experience. I myself, like I said, have been around for about 13 years, but we also have other individuals in the organization who've been here for even longer than this, and we all believe in this brand, which is why we are still around to this day. All right, here we go. So when we talk about the why bias for Gefen, I've selected a couple of kind of the key reasons why. And the first is that we support a ton of legacy and new AV standards, like I just talked about. We support composite and all the way through to HDMI. And not only this, we support all of this using a number or very wide and probably the largest array of mediums that are available. And we'll talk about what those mediums are here in a little bit. Moving on to superior support. So we've got a dedicated global staff that provides support for every project as needed. So we are constantly being asked to help spec in certain products for projects. Not only that, but we also do custom firmware and development. So it's very important to note that we don't buy boxes off the shelf like a lot of our competitors do, right? We develop these products, we do the research, we work with IC manufacturers to develop products from the ground up, which also means we have full control over firmware development. And unfortunately, I can't name a lot of the companies that we work with in these very large organizations that we do build custom products for. Not only does this help us when we need to fix issues just for generally for customers, because we can do that firmware work, but provide these kind of advanced solutions. One of the greatest examples of this is, our full HDMI 2.0 4x1 switcher. We've implemented over time, for example, auto switching capability, CEC functionality to turn displays on and off, which now makes that product viable for like conference rooms where you needed to have auto switching and control that display. And features like this that we build in sometimes, if it's not proprietary for a customer, make their way into products, which basically expand their capability and functionality, right? Certainly one of the key points, what makes Gefen very special amongst the different competitors in this industry. The last 2 points are highly, they're really kind of coordinated, but reliability is extremely important. Like I said, we have a number of high profile customers that we've worked with, and we proudly maintain a 0.01% failure rate, right? This means our products do not fail 24/7, kind of hearkening back to what we talked about in the mission statement. These products are reliable, which has helped us become globally recognized. All right, so we remain the go-to brand for government installations. We work very closely with a very large medical customer who provides products for medical, and especially during this important time, all over the globe, rental and staging and retail. And I call out retail here specifically because we have worked very closely with a very large retail company who is globally known, and we provide the backbone for their digital signage. In fact, we had a project in 2013, and we are actually now in the process of completing another project with them right now, which is even a larger project for us. But again, we are the go-to brand and globally recognized. All right. So what about market firsts and innovations? All right, so I mentioned a guy started the company back in 1998, and his background actually was in sound bites and working with studios in the LA area, House of Blues, Live Nation before they were Live Nation. And the first products that he produced was this VGA KVM extender over Cat5, right? So what is that? So that product basically was allowing us to take a computer that was in a studio, right? And if that computer was, a noisy piece of equipment, allowed them to take that computer outside and simply then extend over very easily procurable and installable Cat5 cable, which is now the de facto standard, right? So keyboard, video, mouse, extending that over Cat5 so they could just control that computer from a remote location. Moving on in 2013, I won't talk about EDID because I could go on and on about EDID, but EDID is a source for major pains within the AV industry, right? Without having proper EDID management, the source may output something that the display is not compatible with. So we created the first EDID recording device that we brand named the Detective. And unfortunately, we used to kind of joke around that maybe we should have patented this because now everyone's got some kind of EDID recording device. But we were the first ones that came up with this product back in 2003 that allowed us to record and store EDID, which solves a number of problems. You want to, set a source to a particular resolution or 2 speaker outputs, you can do that with an EDID. So jumping forward into 2009, we were the first proprietor of wireless HDMI. So we use a technology called ultra wideband that runs on the 60 gigahertz range. And at the same time, we also produced a 5 gigahertz product, which is now commonly known as the WHDI standard back in 2009. And of course, today we still maintain products in both of those ranges for 60 gigahertz using a more common format as opposed to UWB, and of course in 5 gigahertz as well. 2009, we were tasked very specially and specifically by Apple, in which case myself and our business development manager, he and I both flew up to Cupertino and we met with the global product marketing director for Apple, who had a problem to be solved, right? So at that time, they'd released their Apple Pro Cinema displays, which were using mini DisplayPort. However, their saturation in the marketplace with the Mac Pros that they were currently selling still only had DVI. And so they needed us to develop a mini DisplayPort, a DVI to mini DisplayPort adapter. So this is an active conversion box, and we set to work and successfully deployed this for Apple. Was sold through the Apple stores. Just another key in point of some, gives you an idea of kind of Gefen's position in the marketplace to have Apple obviously come back to us for this. 2009, also another great year for us. We produced the first HDBaseT extender. So we have a manufacturing plant in Israel who's very close to Valens, and Valens is the proprietor of HDBaseT technology. Now, we named this product ELR, which stood for Extended Long Range, because at that time, no one knew who HDBaseT was. But now, of course, HDBaseT is a common household name in terms of our industry. But we were the first members of the HDBaseT Alliance. And to this day, we still maintain a great relationship. In fact, I just had a great call the other day with Valens on new and upcoming HDBaseT technology. And I'll fast forward a little bit to 2016. In 2016, as you know, HDMI 2.0 was ratified in about 2013, but it wasn't until a few years later where we really started to see the availability of ICs to make the infrastructure products that you see today, the switchers, the splitters, etc. And we were one of the first to market with a full bandwidth HDMI 2.0 product line, right? So we had switchers, splitters, and extenders kind of came online after that. And in 2019, as I kind of mentioned earlier, we developed Smart CEC technology, is what I've been branding this as, which helped us win a project with this global retailer that allows us to really kick out the rest of the competition because it's some very unique things to keep displays on and the proper inputs selected, all automatically without user intervention. All right, moving on. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I missed my cue there.
No problem. All right, so basic building blocks of AV signal management. So I usually have this slide and I talk about it quite often because to be a company in this industry for AV signal management, you have to be proficient in every one of these 5 building blocks, or sometimes I call them tenets, right? So extension is pretty simple to understand. That's point to point, and it actually accounts for a large or the lion's share of products that Gefen also sells and produces are an extension product. In fact, it's one of the most needed functions in any installation is to get a signal from point A to point B beyond the standard copper cable limitations that we find today. Splitting allows us, of course, is very simple to understand, taking point to multi-point. So retail, this is certainly used quite a bit, or in digital signage. Switching is the opposite. If we need to, for example, expand the number of inputs we have on a device, we use switching, or in conference rooms, for example, we want to switch between multiple inputs. Matrixing is just a combination of these two, and of course conversion is a very broad category, but conversion can mean anything. We can be converting the resolution, the color subsampling, right? So any kind of function that relates to conversion also is important. So we build products for each one of these categories, right? And when we start combining these functions, we start looking at application-specific products. For example, in a residential application, what are the 2 most important things many people need? You need a matrix, or you need to handle multiple sources and multiple displays, and you need to extend it. So naturally, you'll see a product with matrixing and extension built in. For a conference room, you may need to switch between multiple inputs, do some conversion and extension, and then you've got a conference room switcher product. So not only are we proficient in each one of these categories, but we're also proficient in combining these building blocks together very well. So this slide is solutions by category. So this breaks it down a little bit further and gives you a little more granular view of what we do in each of these. Signal extension I've pulled out from routing because really, like I said, it's its own category and is quite a bit of our business. And you can see the different mediums, as I was talking to earlier, of what we can do, right? We do things in HDMI, SDI, DVI, VGA, etc. But we can do these over wireless. We do it over IP, which is one of the latest innovations that we've been seeing. We've been doing it since nearly almost a decade now for over IP. Category cabling, of course, for HDBaseT, and fiber optic. There are very few, in fact, I'd be difficult to kind of name any of the brands or competitors out there who have all of these mediums available, right? Including fiber optic. And fiber optic for us is a large category because it services the medical market, right? When we need to electrically or galvanically isolate a signal, we do this over fiber optic. Or if you need to take a signal over a very large distance, we're doing it over fiber optic into the kilometers. And we do this for a lot of government installations where we need to send a signal out over, in fact, multiple kilometers. For signal routing, That combines the things like splitting and switching, and matrixing we do in small, medium, and modular sizes. In this case, modular is referring to our IP system, which is highly scalable to near almost an infinite number of endpoints that we can support over IP. For signal conversion, of course, we do things like scalers, which have the ability to convert formats. And of course, for connectivity, you need to go from one type to another. This is another, really a problem-solving kind of category. And in terms of signal management, we have all the tools necessary from testing equipment, from signal generators to adapters, compatibility and software, and a very special tool that we call Synergy that I will talk about next. All right, so I've kind of pulled in a couple of key technologies for Gefen that really are the technologies that saturate the majority of products. So these are some of the big differentiators that you'll find on nearly all Gefen products. So first is compatibility with Gefen Synergy software. So what is this? This really is a software tool that combined multiple software applications that we had separately into a single software that you can run that handles these five pillars, right? So update, discover, configure, manage, and monitor. You can see them there at the bottom. So we have the ability to update products by connecting them to Synergy, whether this is directly connected to a computer for updating or even through an IP connection. The discovery protocol is something very special. It took us a while to develop. This is a proprietary IP that we've created that allows us to talk to any Gefen product that connects over a network connection. And today, nearly every product has to have the ability to connect over a network. That's how we're doing most of our communication. The discovery protocol is proprietary, a protocol that we've built, similar to something that you may have heard of called like Bonjour or Zero Config, that basically allows us to manage, set up IP addresses for devices, communicate with them without having to change anything on your computer. Right? So traditionally, if you wanted to do some kind of configuration of an IP device, if it's even set to DHCP, you want to send it to static, you have to go in and change the network settings. Our protocol allows us to speak to any Gefen piece on a network, regardless of your network subnet that you're sitting on, right? Any network configuration, we can communicate and set it up. So it's a very cool tool for easy setup and management. So we have other pillars like control and maintenance. We have a full-blown EDID editor built into Synergy that allows us to create or modify EDIDs that's built into there, as well as monitoring capabilities. We were the first ones to work with HDBaseT for their second generation of ICs, HDBaseT 2.0, which also added the ability to monitor the HDBaseT link. And we have a subset of products that have this capability built in, so you can actually monitor your HDBaseT link. The HDMI monolock is something you'll find on a number of different Gefen products that basically allows us to securely connect HDMI, right? HDMI, as you know, is a friction mount type of connection option. And with the monolock incorporated on this is a secure connection. And this was extremely important for us to actually win a number of bids with a lot of high profile customers because it allows us to have a secure connection where someone couldn't just very easily pull it out or wouldn't accidentally drop out. So for secure installations where they need to ensure that nothing was gonna happen to their connections, HDMI and monolock has helped us kind of facilitate that. Advanced EDID management, and again, I won't talk too much about EDID, but the fact is we've recognized this very early on as something that we needed to manage properly. So we have this built into nearly every Gefen product, the ability to manage your EDID, whether you want to generate a custom one. And in fact, in many cases, we take care of this function for you. In example, some our splitter products will parse or will read the EDID from all the connected displays and generate a brand new EDID for the source to read that will ensure that you've got a picture on all the displays. So if you have a mix of 4K and 1080p, we'll create an EDID that says, okay, well, we need to output 1080p because that is what all the displays support. Same thing for audio. This kind of logic that's built in is something we take very seriously, and we are very careful on how we implement this with every single product. In addition to that, all of our products incorporate something that I call advanced API that has controls for nearly every single function on that product, including EDID management. Well, not only do you have the ability from a control system to really manage every aspect of that product, but we also provide a lot of advanced status feedback for these units. So we collect information and make it available for things like HPD, which is hot plug detect, or things like RSense. Now, these things can be used creatively. For example, we know customers that we've had overseas in Europe have used RSense to be able to detect whether a display is on or off. It's a much better indication than HPD, and they use this in a digital signage application to basically be able to prove to a customer that the display was on and playing back the content for proof of playback, so they could get played on an ad rev model in digital signage. right? So this advanced API with all this, helps for troubleshooting, and certainly is a great aspect of Gefen products. So where are we headed? And I threw this in here because I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of indication of where we're going. Specifically, there's a large focus on AV over IP. And I pulled in some statistics. I pulled some things from various places like Avixa. But really, what we're looking for, specifically for KVM, and I wanted to pull in KVM because our product line supports keyboard, video, mouse over IP, which some of our competitors do not. But basically, we're looking at 415 million just in 2019 alone, right? Growing to 716 by 2026. We're looking at an 8% CAGR between these years. It is a category that is seriously growing, and we're seeing more and more customers kind of bringing on AV over IP products. Now, the Gefen solution is what we consider a mid-range AV over IP solution, right? Because this is where the bulk of customers are, working with 1 gigabit Ethernet. All right. When we start looking at higher end, much more costly solutions that are running on 1 gigabit or more, that's where we start seeing, for example, more niche applications, right? But we are hitting basically critical mass on this. And when we start seeing a shift and 10 gig becomes, of course, more appropriate, we will certainly move on and develop on that side. In addition to that, we're keeping an eye on the future, right? Like I mentioned, I just talked to Valens on HDBaseT. HDBase 3.0 is starting to reach, the ability for us to kind of develop products with it, which add a number of new features to the HDBaseT platform. HDMI 2.1 is certainly on the forefront, including things like 8K. Of course, we'll start seeing the Olympics that, if they do happen in in Tokyo or in Japan, will certainly be being broadcast actually in 8K. That is a goal for the Olympics for broadcasting in Japan. So 8K is certainly on the up and up, and already having discussions with the IC manufacturers on where we can take that. All right, let's look at some application examples. So just kind of keying in point on this largest retailer. So it says US, but really it's global. Unfortunately, I can't name who they are, but they are currently using a number of our splitter products, which include a very special cascading capability to be able to address a number of displays in their TV video wall in all of their locations here in the US. In fact, if you walk into any of these stores, you will be able to see these products. And we're currently very much in swing of a second iteration of this project. So again, if the largest global retailer is using Gefen, it tells you a lot. All right, moving on to that. Stratosphere. This project is close for me. I've actually been to the Stratosphere for helping on this project itself. So the sports booking section in the Stratosphere, as well as 2 other casinos, 2 of them are located in Laughlin, all owned by the same organization, are using Gefen AV over IP products to manage all their displays in the sports booking area of the Stratosphere and those other hotel/casinos. Right. In this case, they've got 43 sources, over 50 screens, using 2 of our control platforms that we call the CU LAN, which is the control unit. And is basically was a simplified way for them to get an installation going. It's very easy to get the system set up with the CU LAN in place, which is able to detect all of our devices and run setup within minutes, right? And this, of course, uses that discovery protocol that I had mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. All right, another great win for us, and another one that you may be familiar with, is the NFL. So in the NFL, in all 32 official NFL stadiums, Gefen is providing, using AV over IP products to distribute live video throughout the stadium itself. So I've listed all the stadiums here, but you can imagine this is used actually for concessions and concession signage in these stadiums. The Gefen is a de facto provider for the solution, which also helped us in the next slide. So this year, it's Super Bowl. I'm not going to be able to convert that number from Roman numerals, but the Super Bowl for this year, Gefen was the provider for the security extension that was being held, and this was in Florida, right? So in fact, 2 of our head of sales and our head tech support were both actually on site to make sure that this went through properly. In fact, they had to go through very, they were highly scrutinized and made sure it had to get security access and clearance because the Secret Service was present, because the president was on site. And this was a very big win for us, providing all of the security. And there was quite a few. There was more than 100 endpoints that we had to manage over the AV over IP system, but it went off without a hitch, worked well over the 2 days that they had to be on site. And fortunately for them, they actually got to see the Super Bowl live. So benefit for them. Unfortunately, I was not in country, but I am a little bit jealous. All right. And the last example here, healthcare and health and hospital care. This is just one example. This is in Australia, but our fiber optic solutions are used in a number of different applications globally because of their galvanic and electrical isolation capabilities. We are fully certified for medical applications with these products. Not only that, again, a number of different hospital applications, but I at least wanted to show one here. We've got another great installation at the Macquarie University in Australia as well, who's using this in multi-million-dollar operating room environments that really is the backbone for their system or distributing video that are used in operations, for example. All right. So in conclusion, I hope I've been very clear. So Gefen is the trusted name brand in the AV industry. We create a wide array of products, both legacy and current AV signals, and that will continue on into the future for relevant technologies, right? So we build relevant technologies that have the most impact for our customers, and behind that, you can be guaranteed that we have world-class support and reliable performance that you can count on. If you have any questions, please feel free to send those up to Nick, and if there's anything beyond that, of course, he'll forward that on to Eldon and myself. Thank you very much for your time, and if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to field those for you.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. I think you might actually be giving me a run for speed record and talking there. I don't know.
I talk a lot.
Nah. I find that it's better that way. It keeps people's attention because they have to concentrate harder in order to be able to listen. So no, it's been awesome. I think I fielded all of the questions that were in the chat. So I don't think that there was anything else that was pertinent. If anybody has a question later on, or feel free to get in touch with your salesperson or write me directly, nick@av-export.com. It's a pleasure having everybody here. Thanks again. Next webinar in the series is coming up this coming week. If you hadn't seen it already, there was a Sonos announcement that happened last night and today. Some new Sonos products that came out, and we'll be covering all of those this coming week. Thanks again to Raphael and Jason, as well as Eldon and Horacio, as well as all of our attendees. God bless you guys. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you.
Nick.